Hi, welcome to Speaking of Faith, occasional conversations about faith, life, and so much in between. My name is Chris Holmes. I'm the Stemler Scholar in Residence and one of the pastors here on staff at First Presbyterian Church. And I have the great pleasure of talking today with Karen Wright Marsh, who is the director of Theological Horizon, an organization in Charlottesville, Virginia, which supports Christians and seekers alike in the academic environment by providing a place, a community for them to explore thought and life and faith. And I wonder, I've mentioned this Theological Horizons before, but I wonder if you could tell me more about Theological Horizons and the sort of work that you do there.
Theological Horizons was a dream that Charles and I had, my husband, when we were pretty young. We were children of the church, both preachers' kids, brought up with communities of faith who loved us and surrounded us. And we had the experience after college of going to graduate school. He was at Harvard and the University of Virginia. And we felt like the people in the church didn't understand why you would go to Harvard. They'll just mess up your faith.
Right.
This was back in the day when secular humanism was, a big fear.
Yeah.
So we felt a little alienated because we were both, and he in particular, wanting to do scholarship as discipleship.
Yeah.
Wanting to enter into the academic world as fully ourselves. Now, on the other hand, we had the experience of being in the academy and having academics, even theologians, even religious studies professors, really not having interest or being wary of confessional faith and belief, that personal side, with the suspicion that, your personal beliefs just cloud your vision, your intellectual integrity. So there was a gap for us between the church and the academy. And so we started this nonprofit independent ministry as a way of creating support for people like us who wanted to live out our lives as people of faith within the academy. So it started with that vision and it has grown over many, many years.
So in your years since those initial experiences in grad school of that gap that you said between the church and the academy, this place and this relationship, I wonder if you can just tease out a little bit more sort of how you understand that relationship now. Are the church and the academy totally irreconcilable? Or how do they work in tandem, or how do they work together, do you think?
Yeah. I would not say they're irreconcilable. I hope not, because I feel like I'm in both worlds, right? Trying to put it together. But look, the university is the place where we educate our children, those of us who have that privilege to send them to school. They are learning ideas. The culture is being shaped there. Their professors and their peers and their whole worlds are being shaped in a new way in the university. This is a very important place. And I think we want to enter into that space as people of faith to support the process there and to be a part of the conversation. I think in the church, again, the church is a place of personal growth, of worship, of scripture, and the church is a special space too. My hope is that both the university and people in the church can see the gifts that they offer to one another. Because there are gifts there. And I think as families, we take our kids to church and then we send them to school. In my case, my husband is teaching in the university and I'm interacting with other people in the community. So a lot of cross conversation is possible and wonderful.
Yeah, the cross conversation. I love that phrase. One of the things that I'm sort of tasked with in my position here at First is, or at least historically, this position has tried to bridge the gap between the church and the theological academy, the seminary or schools of theology. And I think oftentimes when we're in these conversations about the church and the academy or the church and the theological academy, we often think in terms of what the academy offers the church in the sense of critical thinking or intellectual formation. But I think we often talk less about what the church offers the academy. And so I wonder if you might think about what are the gifts of the church that you offer members of the academy, whether those are college students or faculty or others associated with the academy.
Yeah. I feel like the church has shaped many, many young people who come to the university with a grounding in purpose, in values, in prayer, in community. So they have been brought up in a really wonderful place that for kids who did not grow up in the church, they've been shaped by the culture, maybe by the schools, by their families. But the church is a really unique community when you think about it, where people of all ages come together. So I often see students who are very well prepared for the challenges of college because they've been taught that ideas matter.
Yeah.
You know, what you believe shapes you, and that God is a part of that. I think that the church offers stories of what it means to actually live what you believe intellectually.
Yeah.
So ideas in my tradition, I'm an old Presbyterian, ideas were very important. But I also was aware that people of faith before me had lived truly in their bodies a life of integrity. So we can give them examples of what it means to be more than an intellectual person, but to be a whole person. I also think that the church offers the university a perspective that we all have sort of different styles of learning and of being. We see Christians who experience God in nature, who are brought to life in natural encounters. We see people who encounter God through activism, through changing the world. We see people who are caregivers. Sort of these spiritual languages or spiritual personalities, I think we want to bring to the fore, because faith and learning, both of those things are not simple acts of the intellect.
Yeah.
But there should be a wholeness there,
Yeah.
and a variety.
Yeah. So the emphasis on the whole person and the formation of the whole person is something that as we've been talking, I keep thinking about this question: is it livable? Right? This fundamental question that I think college classes ask, and certainly the church asks, is this idea livable? And what would it look like if you lived that way? And it sounds like that sort of formation in the Christian tradition is something that really the church does offer the university at least as a conversation partner, if not another form of formation. So we're having this conversation at a Presbyterian church, which has, like some other traditions, a lot of emphasis on knowledge, on intellectual knowledge, on book knowledge. And yet there are other Christian traditions, some of my former students, who are very suspicious of anything related to the intellectual life. And so I'm wondering, how do you balance the sort of intellectual pursuit on the one hand and spiritual formation on the other? Are the mind and the heart, or the spirit, all that far apart in what it means to be a human?
Well, I would say no. As being married to a theologian, I have to defend intellectual theology. But in my experience, students who have intellectual questions or challenges, first of all, good for you, I say. If you live in the world and you look around, you have questions. Why is there evil in the world? Why is there suffering? You better ask questions, because there's a lot of challenging reality that you face, whether it's in your own life or just looking around. Yeah. And I think that the intellectual questions are often accompanied by emotional, personal experiences. So on the one hand, I want to illuminate, tell me more about your experience. What is your story? Because a lot of times other parts of life come into those intellectual questions. But I don't want to write it all off as an existential experience that you're having is leading to this question. I mean, the questions need to be asked. Yeah. Charles, my husband, is at the University of Virginia this semester teaching a course called Faith and Doubt in the Modern World. So for 6 weeks, they're discussing all the different arguments for doubt, and then for 6 weeks, they're discussing all the different responses of faith. And I love that, because I think it's equipping students to live in the world of questions and the world of faith. They all want to have a grounding in meaning. They all want to see, is it livable? Yeah. And I think we have to honor the question, and we have to show them what it means to live and to respect their intelligence and to encourage their questions.
Yeah, and something, obviously this is going to be still obvious, but living requires both our minds and our hearts and our spirits. To be a fully human person, it requires all of us. And so our learning and our formation should obviously address both, I think I hear you saying.
Yeah, and they want to see someone ahead of them who's lived that. Yeah. One program that we offer is a mentoring program, the Fellows Program. And each student is paired with an older person. And we'll often invite people in to speak, whether it's someone in the medical profession or a researcher or a business person. And we'll say, tell us about your career, tell us about your work, and tell us about God's presence in that. Tell us about your family struggle. You know, what did you do as the head of the medical center at UVA? How did you raise your kids? You know, really, what does it mean to bring faith and thought and life together? And it's always enlivening, I think, for students to sort of get a vision of what their lives can be. And it's also a wonderful challenge for people who come and speak. Because they're not often asked,
that
right?
question.
That question, like, how do you live all this together? So the conversations, to me, are very fruitful on all sides. And it's a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for helping us think through some of this tenuous relationship between the church and the academy and faith and reason. It's very helpful, and I'm sure it'll be helpful for those that are viewing.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us in this installment of Speaking of Faith. We hope that it's been helpful for you and that you'll join us for future installments.